So you've lived a lot of places in your life, and I was thinking earlier this morning, I wonder what the best place he's ever lived. Can you think of either your favorite city or favorite country that you've lived in?
Yeah, I've been asked that question a lot because, we've moved all over the world. And there's three: Spain, Italy, and the Netherlands, Holland. I liked Holland a lot. However, the weather was horrible there. It was always cold, wet, windy. In the wintertime, it's freezing, it's snowing, gets my car all messed up. And you know me, I like to keep my car clean. But it must be in the blood because I just like that place a lot. And the people are real friendly, and you were too young to remember, but they're just really friendly. But they've always been a neutral country. During the war, they were neutral. So they didn't fight Germany, they didn't fight for the United States. They were just neutral. And all the military guys that go there, Americans, they always complained about the Dutch not wanting to fight for themselves, and we had to fight for them. But that's just the way the country is. So I really liked it. The other issue was, like Germany, the countryside looks just like Pennsylvania, where I grew up. And all the houses look exactly the same because they have that German architect, because Germany and Holland are they're border countries, so they're right next to each other. So a lot of the architectural and economic stuff, they mirror each other. So it reminded me of Western Pennsylvania a lot because of the trees and the architecture and what the people ate. That was another thing. I'm a meat and potatoes person. I'm not a noodle and tea. I'm meat and potatoes because that's how I grew up. So in Holland, that's their primary meal is meat and potatoes. And so all the pastries, the Dutch things you hear about, they're not really sweet. American sweets are probably the sweetest I've ever had. Italy has sweet stuff too, but in the United States it's real sweet. But Holland just reminds me a lot of where I grew up, and I felt very comfortable there. So in Spain and in Italy, I also fit in. And the country was part of the reason why I liked it, and along with the people. But, in Italy, they have some of the greatest food you ever want to eat. In Spain, it's a lot of rice. It's a lot of like pastas, but they have sauce on them that's different from in Italy. So between the three, it would be difficult for me to say which one I like the best, but because of the weather, I would rather live in Italy or Spain. Now, the difference between Italy and Spain is, in Italy, there's just a lot of old facilities. I mean, hundreds of years old. So if the wind blows too hard, they're going to fall down. So I like clean cities. Now, the Italians are probably a little bit cleaner than the Spaniards because that, I guess you call it a custom, where you go into a restaurant, and if you like the restaurant and it's really good, you throw stuff on the floor like your wrappers or your napkins. So when you go into Spanish restaurants, they're a little bit dirty. You go in an Italian restaurant, they're clean. The Italian people are very clean. They both like wine, but I'm not an alcoholic. I don't like wine. But that's what they offer is the wine and the food. And then, like I said, the countryside. In Italy, most of the spaghetti westerns, like The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, Hang 'em High, the Clint Eastwood movies, they were made right there in Italy. And the reason why they were made there is because the weather's so good. Well, I take that back. They made some in Spain. They made movies in Spain also. But because they have the terrain, they have the Spanish terrain looks like our western part of the United States, where Italy is a little bit different. It's more wooded. It looks more like Germany and Holland than it does the western terrain of the United States. So, but they make movies over there. So the Italian people are different. they're hot-headed. They'll get into a fight with you in no time, and they like certain people. If they like you, you're well taken care of. If they don't like you, get to the back of the line. So I had an incident when I was in Italy, and I was a real estate officer, and we were leasing houses. And so this landlord, he was really a nice guy. He would always give us wine. When I left, I had a basement full of wine that I gave to one of the employees in my office. I never drank it. It tastes like vinegar. It was so strong. But he would always give me this wine. So he owned a auto shop, and I had this little bitty 750 Fiat. That's real teeny. You've never seen a car this small. Two people could barely get into it. Gets like 100 miles to the gallon. So I had that car, and so I needed some work on it. The guy's name was Johnny. This is not a true Italian name. It's just Johnny. And so this place was called Johnny's. So I pulled up there, and I thought I was going early. I was like 15 minutes early. He told me when to come, and I was 15 minutes early. But there was this long line of cars, and they were all sitting there, and Italians are not very patient. And so they were cursing and yelling at each other. But that's the way it is in that country. You just have to get used to it. Most Americans can't. They don't like it, but it didn't bother me. I just laughed, especially when you learn some of the language and you hear them cursing in their language. It's funny. But, and they did send me to school for Italian, and I was there, I think, 6 weeks, but it was a crash course. So anyway, we're there, and Johnny sees me at the back of the line, and there must have been 10 cars, maybe 12 in front of me. So Johnny looks down there, and he gets my attention. He's waving his arms, and he motioned to me, come on up. I'm like, I'm not going in front of all these guys cursing, and they're mad, and they're ready to fight each other. I'm not doing that. So I'm saying, well, he's not talking to me. He's talking to somebody else. So he goes around the cars, and he comes up about halfway, and he's just pointing at me, and he says, come on, let's go. I forgot the word for let's go in Italian, but I looked around, and all these Italians were looking at me, and I'm the only American there, and so I pulled my car around. Oh, my God, these Italians went crazy. I thought they were going to pick my car up. They came over to my car, and they were yelling at me, and Johnny's yelling back at them, and he pulls my car to the front, and he works on my car first. But that's the way the Italians are, and they don't care. One time we were on a tour. We were in Florence, Italy, and the bus driver couldn't get through because it was a little car just like mine, and it was in the street. It was parked, and he couldn't get by it. So he got out of the bus, and he asked these Italians to help him. They picked the car up, and it was a museum, and there was these huge chains around. It was like blocks, and then the chains would run through them. There were chains that they put on boats for the anchors. Huge. You couldn't lift one. You couldn't even move it. These guys picked the car up and put it on the other side of the chain. So the guy came out. There's no way he could get out of there unless somebody picked the car up and put it back on the other side. But that's how the Italians are. They're very emotional. So I think I would go with Italy first, and then Holland, and then Spain. But I like all three equally well, but I just like the food in Italy. I like the people. They're crazy, but I like them. I like the countryside because it does look like where I grew up. And if they like you, they like you. If they don't, they don't. And everything is cheap over there. You could buy a pair of leather shoes. You know, your feet is a little bit bigger than the average person. They would just make the shoes for you. Any style you want. You just tell them what you want. And it probably costs you about $20-25 for a handmade pair of shoes. Probably nowadays, that was back in 1976. Probably now that's gone up to $100, but still handmade shoes is $100. That's a good deal, and it's all leather. Bought a leather couch there. Almost everything I had was leather. In fact, I gave that couch to Tori. I don't know if you remember it, but we
was it brown?
In San Bernardino, huh?
Was it brown?
Oh, was it
brown?
Yeah, it was brown. Yeah, it was a nice couch. Even after all those years, you saw it. It was still in great shape. So Yeah, I kind of like them the best. I don't know why. I'm crazy. They're different kind.